Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Price List Update Summary video series brought to you by Actionable Insights. You've got Harrison here, and you've got Whatley there, and we're here to talk about the changes to the Xactimate price list in January 2023. What's going on, Whatley? How are we doing today?
Yeah, pretty good, brother.
Oh, man, that was, for being pretty good, that was pretty low energy.
Yeah, well, I flew in, I landed at 3 a.m. in the morning.
It's true.
And I got up for a meeting at 7:30 a.m. So that took a little bit out of me.
Got it. Do you need me to be excited today?
Oh,
all right.
Any way you can be less excited.
Fair. Guys, if it's your first time watching the Price List Update Summary video series, a reminder, we look to examine what new line items were added to the Xactimate price list this month, and we take a look at what line items that already existed changed this month. There are major changes every month, so it's good to stay on top of what's going on with the Xactimate price list. If you want to have the best estimates possible, go to getinsights.org and check out the Actionable profile. If you're writing estimates in Xactimate with our Actionable profile, you're going to have live estimating guidance that comes up while you're writing your estimate. So you write, and our guidance reacts to what you're writing to make sure that you end up with the best possible outcome. We also have one of our first in-person Xactimate classes coming up this year in February 21st through 23rd. So if you watch this video series and you think we kind of know some stuff about Xact and you want to come learn with us, come join us. We're going to have a class in February. All right. Whatley, we have 3 new line items this month in January 2023. I have my screen share here. I'm in X1 desktop. And the first 2 line items that were added this month are HMR SBCS as well as WTR SBCS. These are add-on line items for confined space blasting. Now, we have previously had, if I search up here, CLN SBCS, we've had, and I'll actually do the cool zoomy trick we were looking at earlier.
Woo.
We've had confined space blasting in the CLN category. What's new this month is the HMR and the WTR. And the thought process behind this, we believe, is that the pricing department is making best efforts to make sure that the Xactimate price list can be used in whatever scenario that the work was won. So, for example, when you are in program work and you're working for a third-party administrator, generally speaking, program work wants all your line item categories to be the same for any particular activity. All CLN, all WTR, all HMR.
Yeah, I mean, that's true for mitigation.
Yes, fair.
Environmental.
On the mitigation side, but
not true for repair.
Yeah, you need different trades to be able to perform repair projects. But with this one in particular, these are mitigation-oriented line items. And the idea being here is if we only had CLN line items for confined space blasting and we were working in a WTR environment, often there would be conversations about why are you using a CLN line item in a WTR invoice, for example. So it's nice to have options.
Yeah, but that's warranted too because adjusters are trained to do that because of how labor minimums fire. And so when you have a cross-category inclusion for a similar sister line item, it can create inherent but erroneous overages.
Yes.
And so having it within the same category constrains that.
I agree. Interesting to note here, the CLN and the WTR line items are essentially the same unit price at 0.89 in our San Diego price list here. And taking a look at the labor trade code, both the CLN and the WTR category line items for add-on confined space blasting have the CLN-R cleaning and remediation technician labor trade code. While you and I were commenting before this, we don't see a lot of CLN line items that end up having the CLN-R trade code. Typically, it's more CLN. So yep. Interesting to note that they essentially took the line item from its original place in the CLN SBCS category and put it in the WTR. There was no other changes to CLN SBCS.
Yeah, but that was thoughtful because CLN I think of as Molly maids traditionally, right? Mm-hmm. Like who can I call in quickly to come in with some paper towels and some Windex and clean up some construction dust? But though that class of employee isn't trained to deal with confined space
blasting, yes. And so
so it makes sense that they rolled it to the trade code. It's actually really thoughtful.
Well, and
they did that.
To point out, this CLN SBCS line item already existed. There were no changes to it this month. So it's always been CLN-R. Just now that they've adopted it to the WTR category, it also has CLN-R, which is more typical in the WTR category.
What is the trait, the supporting events, if you eye it?
For the new line item?
Either one.
Okay,
I'm just curious.
Supporting events looks to be CLN T-Lab, Cleaning Remediation Technician.
Yeah. So that would be the CLN-R
Same
equivalent.
thing here, I believe. Yeah, same thing in the CLN category line item. So
yeah, the pricing department handles that in a number of different ways. There's some WTR items for like removing a undermount sink after hours has a supporting events of PLM. So it's interesting how they try to bridge that gap between either aligning the trade codes sometimes that might differentiate from a familiar pattern we see with a category code, or they might deviate with a supporting event. A lot of thought goes into these line items, but I think these were a great addition and will help reduce friction in claim settlement.
Options are good. All right. Lastly, there is one other new line item this month in the excavation EXC category. It's ECSSF for a snow safety fence. It's cold outside.
Nah, the polar vortex, man. Cameron Porter is a clairvoyant. He saw it coming. He got the line out just in time. So you guys who got caught up in this polar vortex and you're deploying your snow safety fences, who's your man?
Right there.
Uh-huh.
Line item exists. So those are the 3 new line items that are added to the Xactimate price list this month. Let's now jump to what changed between December 22 and January 23, other than the year. All right. Taking a look at line item changes here. We're going to start with yield and supporting event changes. Now, all the changes in this category this month are around changes to yields. One of the first ones we'll look at here is the ELS category line items for solar panels, specifically detaching and resetting solar panels. You'll note that the line item for the solar panel has the reset activity, and we've also listed the detach and reset specific line item. Same price, same price. Taking a look at the unit prices here. When we're going to look at the direct yields of the labor of this particular line item, so I'm going to hit the edit button here on the labor component to take a look at the direct yield. And if you've not jumped into yields before, a reminder that yields are talking about productivity. How much can you do of a certain thing in an hour? And direct yield is without supporting events. Supporting events being the inefficiencies and chaos of working in property insurance and restoration, things like planning, drive time, breaks, cleanup, equipment pickup, etc. That is inherently gets in the way of being incredibly productive. So looking at December 2022 on the left, the direct yield in a perfect environment, an electrician could detach and reset about 0.57 panels per hour. Now we've increased that direct yield to 0.68. There's an inverse relationship between yield and price, meaning if something gets easier to do, what happens to the price? Productivity goes up, price goes down. If direct yield goes down, something becomes harder to do, price goes up. So as the yield has gone down has increased from December to January, the overall price of this action has dropped as a result. Whatley, you have solar panels at your house. I do not. You and I were discussing before this that more modern solar panels are lighter, easier to work with, easier to detach and reset. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's simple. That's that simple, right? They're lighter, easier to get up there, easier to install. It's frankly pretty cool that they're serving solar installers to capture that efficiency and afford that benefit to their carrier partners. It's the right thing to do. That is getting easier, and it makes sense that it's getting easier. It reminds me of, remember the line items for installing large televisions in a conference room?
The right? Brackets specifically, the TV wall mount brackets, where all of a sudden, about a year ago, the yield went up on those. Why? Because modern bracket methodology, they're lighter, stronger. And
TVs are way lighter, right, than they used to be. So makes sense.
Very true. Okay.
Yep. Same thing.
These line items, MTL category and roofing category for gable cornice strips and gable cornice returns. Oh, sorry. These are all just gable cornice strips. These all came out approximately in August of 2022. There's been some slight yield changes here. We'll take a look at the gable cornice strip metal here just to take a look at the labor component. Used to be able to do 32, what is this, in linear feet, I believe? Yeah, 32 linear feet per hour. Now we're looking at 25.5. Yield went down, which means the price of the line item went up. And that is reflected in the RCV here, a unit price. It was $9.49 in December 2022 in San Diego. It's now $10.57. All right, so that's all the changes to yields in January 2023. Now let's take a look at changes to additional item information. And these line items here, CLNAV, HMR CLNAV, TCR CLNAV, right? We're cleaning walls. We're just cleaning. Cleaning line items have had an additional item information change. I'm going to pull up these line items and the item images here so we can take a look at the verbiage that has been added here under the notes section of the line item. Used to say, generally, light soiling is easily removed with the use of a cleaning agent and 1 or 2 passes. The pricing department has added this sentence. Cleaning methods may vary. For example, cleaning may incorporate wet wipe, use of dry/sponges, a combination of different methods, etc. So what probably happened here?
My guess is, because I see this question on Xactimate Ninjas every month, is like, hey, what's the line item for sponges? So I think a lot of people were trying to include that line item. And
separately, when cleaning.
Separately, right? So they're creating the line item. Like, how many times have we seen that question?
Quite often.
So I think that's like where this stems from. They're just saying like, hey, these sponges, the Kim sponges, are included in the cleaning line items. That's all.
Generally speaking, right? Like, it's unfortunate at times that the pricing department has to go into such detail to explain what types of methods are typically included in this kind of line item of cleaning, which is weird. It's different for me to say why, because sometimes I appreciate when they specify something to stop fighting. But it's interesting when we see such clarifications because it seems like somebody was trying to do something funky or wacky and it just wasn't the spirit of the line item. And then kind of the industry gets their hand slapped with additional language, trying to be like, guys, this is what's inclusive.
Yes.
All right. Let's jump to the next part here. Sink faucets. This is the reset activity for the sink faucet line item and the detach and reset. This is another one of those, somebody was doing something funky. So they've added this particular sentence, just to clarify that this is the labor cost to disconnect and detach a sink faucet and any associated design features like handles. So it seems like potentially somebody was trying to invoice for detaching a faucet and detaching the faucet handles separately. And the pricing department is just trying to clarify it's the faucet. You're detaching the faucet and all the faucet accessories with this particular line item.
That's wild.
Yep. If I was to guess, I would say somebody looked at this photo and said the faucet's inside of, or the handle's on the faucet. So that line item, the faucet's already there. My handles are not on my faucet, so I need to invoice separately for my faucet handles.
I think you may be giving whoever this is too much
Who knows?
credit.
Just saying there's a lot of different ways the price list is interpreted.
You see the additional item information get updated when people exclude line items that are mutually exclusive, not in the spirit of how these line items were created.
Include. You said exclude. When they include line items that are typically mutually exclusive.
They'll do additional item information and say, hey, this line item isn't otherwise warranted. Or you're right. More often they'll say like this one would be warranted. You rarely see the additional item information be like, hey, don't create a wacky line item that doesn't exist out of nowhere because that's not great, because that's supposed to be in this line. And that's what this is. It's just like, okay, was this that systemic? Were restorers out there detaching the faucet and then separately detaching the handle?
Or at least invoicing for separately?
Somebody was.
Yes, somebody was.
It's like heartbreaking because then you go like, does that person even value their time and how much are they struggling to make a reasonable profit? That's somebody like grasping at straws to try to keep themselves in business. I don't even think that's greed. It's like, it's nonsense, but it's also somebody just desperately trying to find enough margin to stay in business. It's probably not somebody that's running up the bill on the carrier. There would be more effective ways to do that. It's just like, oh, what was going on there? A lack of training.
Potentially.
A lot of nonsense.
Potentially. But I think you're right to note people are out there trying to figure out ways to accurately invoice using the Xactimate software, and sometimes it leads to funky techniques to eventually get to the right dollar amount. But ideally, these clarifications to existing line items can help ensure that contractors and carriers using the software get along and get things settled quickly. This is wildly part of the benefit, to be honest, of our actionable profile. Because when you start using these types of line items, we're going to help guide you as to what line items would be typical and customary to add to that scope, as well as if you add a line item that's not typically added, or as you said, would be mutually exclusive, we're going to give you an alert that says, hey, these aren't designed to be used together. Double check and make sure your intention is pure, or at least add an F9 note that explains why you chose to use this line item that typically would not go with this particular scope. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of that too. I was like, really, this is the kind of person that doesn't know that you could detach your supply lines as warranted. Angle stops leak at least 30% of the time when you disconnect them. You probably braze off your angle stops and replace them with C caps. There's now line items for that as of circa 2019 for C caps, PLM C cap. Like
PLM
if
cap
you
C.
knew the right line
PLM
items,
cap C, just so you know. PLM cap C.
PLM cap C. If you knew the line items in it where you were getting guided by your software, then you wouldn't ever end up doing nonsensical things like trying to build for the handle. But the individuals that were doing that probably don't know that there are other adjacent line items that can be approved without hesitation and are in the spirit of the program.
So I'm excited to see what those that are using the actionable profile are doing. Like we're getting some really good data now over the last 9 months of how things, when alert pops up, how is it resolved? What is the impact of the profile on the ability to settle a claim quickly and accurately? That's the kind of stuff I'm looking forward to reporting.
Well, and also it's getting improved, right? Like your job has become in large part collecting that feedback from your user base and then improving the rules. Like your logic's getting improved significantly.
As soon as this call ends, I had a 3-hour meeting on roofing stuff yesterday, and all of our roofing rules are getting improved. There's going to be about 40 new roofing rules next week related to this. So very excited. Last change this month, they've updated the seal attic framing for odor control line items in general. I've only included one. It's always pointed out that if ceiling joists need to be sealed, use PNT JST, seal floor or ceiling joist system. It now also says for gable end walls, see items, paint, swall. So they're just trying to point out when you're performing these kinds of sealing activities in attics, there are different line items for different aspects of that they are recommending would be the most appropriate in those scenarios.
To be clear, gable roof, right? Simple gable roof, most common roof. The gable wall is going to be your 2 to 4 feet you have there on the side to give the attic some height, and that has a line item that is associated with like higher efficiency than doing joist work, because joist you're going to have 6, 8, 12-inch depth of your joist system or gable system, and with a wall you're going to have normal 2x4s, so there's less lumber. But it's pretty precarious to work up there, and I think it's kind of an odd clarification in so much as...
To have one line item for the joist and have one line item specifically for the gable end walls? Yes.
Yeah, it's weird, but at least there are confined space line items that are add for that you should probably augment both of those with if you're working in the attic, because it is miserable to work in the attic, not just because of the confined space, but you have all of these 2x4s flying everywhere. It's hard to move around. And then you can't just walk on the drywall, right? You got to be very careful where you're putting your feet. And there's all this blown in installation now, commonly, Harrison, which makes it even more complicated to see where you're walking. So it's difficult.
I do not want to go back into my attic anytime soon.
Also, hantavirus is a thing.
Yes.
And in all seriousness, like Harrison and I have a friend who's still paralyzed to this day from hantavirus. I think one of the underplayed risk for restorers is biological hazards from rodents. And in the attic, we are traditionally exposed to rat droppings and so on. Hantavirus is a really nasty thing. It can kill you and leave you paralyzed. We've seen that firsthand. So
wear your PPEs. Invoice for your PPEs.
On and off thoughtfully. Like, there's a lot of things out there that does damage to your health over time. You don't want to be exposed to chrysotile asbestos every day in large quantities, but it one time is not going to cause mesothelioma or asbestosis. But hantavirus is a one-time deal.
Yep.
So be mindful.
Well said. All right, that is everything we have for January 2023 in this episode of Price List Update Summary. Please like, share, subscribe, and in the meantime, good luck settling all those claims out there.
Keep building.